on, guys? Today is December 2nd, 2025. This is the first workshop for the month of December. We got a few more of these to go in the year, in the calendar year, before we kind of switch up the format. We're going to be doing them starting in January. We're going to be doing these every other week instead of every single week. But for the next few weeks, we'll still be doing these all the way up until the holidays. But today we're going to be talking about the importance of word of mouth in, promoting your music, getting your music out there, and just some of the different ways that you might be able to do this, whether it's in person with people or through social media, online. And the article we're going to be going over is by Identity Music. And this one is relatively short and to the point, but I'm kind of going to read it and then maybe touch on my own opinions on certain things that they're talking about in the article. This one is very concise, kind of like the other ones we've been doing in recent weeks. It's not going to be super long and drawn out, but the other two articles that will be in the description of the video, one is by Zip DJ. It's called How to Promote Your Music in 2025, which gives more of, it kind of ties into word of mouth, but it gives more of like those promotional tactics, things we've talked about before. And then the other one is by Psychology Today, and that one is very interesting. The article is called The Power of Human Connection and Music, but this was done actually by someone that works in music therapy specifically, and they wrote a very beautiful article about their experience with the healing power of music and working with patients and working with different people. And it's not really super tied to word of mouth, although I think it relates to it in the way of, showing what your music can do for people and why it's important to share it. So you'll kind of get different things if you read that article, but that is a very long one, so I didn't want to cover that whole thing today. And I wanted to cover this one because it's more related to the topic itself, specifically, using word of mouth to promote your stuff. So let's get into this. It's written by Leanne Abrams. It says, perhaps the most powerful promotional tool you could use out there is word of mouth. A referral from someone you trust is unbeatable, and social media is hot for this right now. But if you don't watch that fire, you might get burnt. Technology, social media, referrals, and word of mouth are more of a multiplier than a form of promotion. How it operates is out of your control, but it has the power to increase your post reach 10 times, 100 times, or even 1,000 times over. That's why finding ways to use this to your advantage should always be incorporated into your music promotional strategies. And this can be done, like it says, via social media, which is the big one, because you're automatically usually going to reach more people on Instagram or X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, or Facebook or YouTube, because automatically you're exposing yourself to more people through the internet, which is pretty obvious. But I think another overlooked one is doing it in your community or just doing it in person with people at networking events, things like shows, going to live shows is a big one, usually for local artists. I actually did this a couple months ago for John P. the MC, who's a local artist here in Canton, Ohio. And, I had him on my podcast. I talked to him before, and I also knew some other artists that were performing. So I wanted to not only go support him and his show, but I think a lot of it for me was, let me actually get out there and kind of put myself out of my comfort zone and go introduce myself to people. And the first thing I did when I got there, before I even went into the venue, I saw my friend Elijah, who was one of the other artists performing, went up to him, started talking to him, and then I introduced myself to everybody else that didn't know me. I knew a lot of these people, but they probably didn't know who I was because they'd never met me before. So it was like, let me go introduce myself to these people, get acclimated, start a conversation, which for me isn't always the easiest thing to do. Even if I'm familiar with someone or their work or have a lot of respect for them, sometimes it's not easy for me being more introverted to go do something like that, especially to do it in, a setting like that. It was definitely a new experience, but I realized the different things that has opened up already for me. I've been able to interview some people that were there that night just from introducing myself, and have the potential to work with more people as well that I connected with there. So I think that's a good example of, a way that can help. And now because those people know me, and if I keep working with them, they'll introduce me to other people that I don't know currently, and it just kind of creates that chain reaction. So I found that doing it in person could even have more power than the internet, because obviously with the internet, you never know who you're dealing with, and people, even if you're reputable and even if you present yourself in a good way, it doesn't always mean people are going to trust you immediately. You have to work harder to build the trust. And I think when you do this in person, it's almost easier because they can see your face, they understand your personality, and they understand how you present yourself, both in a business sense, but also just in a human sense as well. So that is something to keep in mind, and something that I am actively learning and trying to get better at for sure. It says, in order to grow, you need to make your mark on your fans and continue to find ways of reaching new ones. Referrals are an unrivaled way of doing this. One share of your post could open up a whole network of new people. On average, each Facebook post has 338 friends, and Twitter users have 707 followers. If your post was shared 10 times, you could reach more than 7,000 people. Better still, not only is this free, but this new audience will have more trust in something shared by their friends. I think it's supposed to say shared by their friends. And that also, not only is it free, but if you wanted to go the route of doing ads and running those ads, and I've talked about this before, I don't run paid ads on Facebook. I think I've tried that maybe once or twice. It's not as calculated as I would like it to be, as far as the target audience. And that's the toughest part too, with the changing algorithm and things like that on all these platforms. Being able to find the right audience is definitely still tough, even if you're using hashtags. I know on Threads, something that I've noticed, if you're on Threads, is you can add a topic to your post. And usually what I'll do is add music threads or musicians on Threads or something like that. And it almost serves as the message board for that community of people, whoever that might be. And I found that when I do that, I automatically get more engagement from people that have similar interests to me, whether it's other artists or producers. And then from there, you get that engagement in the first, 30 to 40 minutes of the post being up. They're automatically showing it to more people, which is tough because, again, that's not how things used to work. Things used to be all your followers got to see everything and they could share it, and it was different, you know what I mean? And I think a lot of that has to do with the oversaturation of the platforms, but a lot of it has to do with changing algorithm and the way that platforms like Meta have kind of changed things. But I still think there's power in using social media and just being consistent on social media. I'm still as consistent now as I was 5 years ago, just because that's my style, that's my style of promotion. I know that I'm not gonna always get, everything's not gonna land, you know what I mean? Every single day, if I'm posting things aren't gonna land every single day, but it's more about the consistency of people seeing you quite often. Even if they're not being able to see every single post, they know that you are showing up on a consistent basis. So that helps not only, I think, keep the people that are already fans of yours engaged, but I think it helps attract new fans as well. And then this next part of the article talks about kind of the downside of this social media side of things. It says, it's not all good though. According to many studies, there's a dramatic difference in how likely a good experience is to be shared compared to a negative experience. On average, positive news is shared with 3 to 5 people, while negative news is shared with 22. This means that negative outputs are 5.5 times more likely to be shared than positive ones. That creates a big fire hazard on social media. Any missteps you make run the risk of spinning rapidly out of control. You'd be lucky if the post was just ignored. Instead, negative outputs can catch like wildfire and just keep spreading. Once it starts, you'll find it extremely difficult to put it out, and soon you'll be engulfed in flames. And for me, this is kind of touching on where society kind of is at this point with what they call cancel culture, which is, I think that's a different topic for a different day. I have some interesting opinions on that whole thing. I think in a nutshell though, yeah, you should be careful what you're putting up there. I, for one, I never try to get personal with what I'm posting. I strictly stick to the music stuff and stick to what I need to do to promote whatever it is I'm trying to push to people. When I get personal, it's more about myself and my struggles and trying to help people and do that sort of thing. I'm not a person that enjoys drama. I'm not a person that enjoys conflict or confrontation. So I'm not promoting things that would bring that to my doorstep. And I think that says a lot about myself as a person. And I think just a lot of people do too much, and then they kind of get themselves in hot water with others. And it really is like, you just got to watch what you say, what you do, and just be mindful of other people. That's a big one. Like, I guess if there's ever something you're about to post that you're kind of questioning about and you're having like some type of doubt about it, don't post it. Like, go back to the drawing board, and even if your emotions are running high and you feel like you got to say something in the moment, don't do it. Especially if you have a career, if you have, income that's being generated, things like that. Just rethink how you're gonna do it. Even if you end up doing it, figure out a way to do it that isn't gonna set everybody off. And I'm not saying, just cater to other people and what they wanna do. You gotta be yourself. You gotta be genuinely authentic. And a lot of your fans will probably appreciate you for doing that. But I think what I'm trying to get at is, don't go so far as to really ruin your chances of keeping trust with people. And again, the context could be all over the place, because this could apply to really anything. But that's kind of what I take from that portion of the article is, if you're questioning something that you're about to post, whether it's a video or artwork or just you having an opinion on something, just keep things in mind that everything kind of comes back to you in some type of way. But a lot of this just has to do, in my opinion, with the type of person you are. And like I said, if you don't bring drama to your doorstep, it's probably not going to follow you. You put out what you get, or you get in what you put out. And I still strongly believe that. It says, put simply, sending out any insensitive or offensive post could be the 10 words that ruin your career. Yeah, pretty much. It says, that being said, social media should still be, and that goes, before I get to the rest of this, that goes for in person too, obviously. If you say something super offensive or, just inappropriate to your fans or someone you met, like, they're probably not gonna talk to you ever again. Like, you just gotta keep these things in mind, and I don't know, just don't let your mouth kind of get in the way of your whole career that you're building and the more important things. So that being said, social media should still be one of your biggest music promotion priorities, with a big emphasis on trying to get referrals. The benefits are unrivaled, and spreading positive news can provide massive increasing audience and a fan base. This is another thing and another reason why I try to always do the right thing, keep people in mind, and not only that, but you want people to refer you, but start referring other people too, you know, and start making those connections among the people that you've already met. And that goes a long way as well, because you are able to show that you provide value to people in many different ways, even if it doesn't benefit you directly. Like, I think I've talked about this in past videos. Try to connect people that have never met one another. Maybe you know these two people, but you feel like, wow, you know, if they made music together or they had a conversation, they could make cool things together. Let me be the one to kind of introduce them and get that thing going. And it has nothing to do with me. It's just like, you know, I've observed this, think these two could work well together. Let's bring them together and see what happens. Doing things like that goes a long way, because you will be able to gain the trust of both those people, and then they're going to end up referring you to their respective communities and networks of people, and it just creates a very good ecosystem for yourself. And you know, you'll be able to get more work, have more collaborators, things like that. So that's definitely been something I've experienced over the years. It says, are you looking to get your music out there with identity? Well, okay, that last paragraph is basically just promoting Identity Music. And Identity Music, from the looks of it, they have like promotional services. They do like playlist pitching, social media support, music marketing, that sort of thing. So if you want to check that out, go ahead. But I just wanted to read that article and just kind of talk briefly on that. So that's pretty much it. I mean, word of mouth has always been important in business, like forever. That's really how, you know, all these businesses kind of get off the ground. But I think the most important part of that article is just to realize that you need to let people know who you genuinely are, and that you stand for something positive, and that you are someone with integrity, someone that cares about the people you're trying to serve. And like I said, this goes just across the board. This doesn't even have anything to do with music. This could be anything, any type of business you're trying to build, or anything you're trying to push out to people. So that is pretty much it. I mean, I think it's important to kind of touch on something we hadn't touched on before. But like I said, go check out those other two articles in the description of the video. They're very good as well. And I forgot to write down which one we're going to be doing next week. So let me see really quickly which one we're going to be doing next week. I think we have maybe 2 more to go. For some reason, I can't check. Oh man, no, it's not letting me check to see which one is next week. I think my internet's cutting out a little bit. But the date for next week, I can at least give you that, is going to be on the 9th. So we're going to have one of these workshops on the 9th. I can't look at it right now, but you know, we'll be back next week, and I think we got maybe 2 more to go. And then, like I said at the beginning of the video, starting in January, I'm going to be doing these every other week. So I'm kind of breaking it down, and the reason I'm doing that is because I want to make sure I can give only the topics that I feel are the most important, and it allows me to have more time to kind of prepare for each one to do it. So that is the plan for 2026, but you can definitely expect more of these in the new year. But today, I just hope you guys, you know, got a little bit of information on the power of word of mouth. And definitely let me know in the comments the way that you have used this in the past, the way that you continue to use word of mouth, and you know, what role has that played in you being able to get your music out there and just work with more people and have more fans in general. But I guess until December 9th, we'll see you then. Have a safe week. Stay warm out there if you're in the cold weather, and we'll see you then. Thanks you guys, as always, for watching.